All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast with the usual crew. You got myself, Brendan, Trevor, and Blake tonight. We're rolling on with the team previews. We're in the SEC. If you've been following along, if you have not, welcome. Tonight we've got Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M. Let's go ahead, gentlemen, and jump right into it. And we got Tennessee first. Last year in 2023, disappointing at times, solid at times, just a funky season. But hey, it ended strong with the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl against Iowa. Very strong defense, and that's where the hope comes in. Was because of new quarterback play and how he handled one of the top defenses in the country. And we'll go ahead. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Let's talk any coaching changes, Trev, that you're seeing.
Just one of note, because it was kind of a shock to the Knoxville Nation and everything like that, is that Brian Jean-Mary left to go to Michigan to basically do the same job as linebacker coach. But with that said, I feel like the Vols fans should be actually pretty happy with his replacement. And William Inge is coming in. And for those of you that don't recognize the name, it's okay. I understand. But he was the co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach for last year's Washington team. And if one thing I thought the linebackers in Washington actually played pretty well over the course of the season, except for the national championship game. But I think that's a really good pickup. I feel like it's not going to be too much of a fall off. Unless there's relationships and everything like that. The biggest question that the Vols fans and the Vols bloggers sites have with this situation is that even though the linebackers for the Vols last year did not perform to expectations, it's the defensive the linebackers coach had a really good relationship with the D coordinator. So we'll see how that dynamic kind of changes the whole coaching staff a little bit. Hopefully it's an easy transition.
Yeah, and that's something we'll see, and of course that affects recruiting and stuff. We've always mentioned recruiting is not just about where you live, all this stuff. It's about relationships that these guys build. So we'll see how that affects them. Let's talk a little bit about transfer portal because they brought in 9. They had 15 transfer out. They had the 32nd overall class. Key in Lance Hurd, big get from them from the portal, offensive lineman. Jackson Moy, defensive lineman. McCoy coming in, and then I think it's Brazel. I think that's how you would say it. Sorry if I messed it up. And then Savay is another guy that's big for them coming in. Holden stays as well. And then key out for me that I wrote down, Tamarian McDonald, a safety, Turnage, he's leaving, cornerback, Jack Luttrell, safety, and then Elijah Herring, linebacker. So you're losing some defensive pieces there. And that does concern me just a little bit for depth, but for the most part, I think they got some solid guys in, wide receivers, safeties, corners. They got some pieces. So, gentlemen, what are you seeing on this team? Offense, defensive wise, because last year they had moments of being really strong. They had 48% returning production this season. They had the 19th offense last year and the 32nd defense. What are you seeing this year?
So I've got, 2 key players. I'm going to go with I am Alieva, however you say it. And it's a season of what ifs. Like, he's got to be good. He's the key to their success. If he has a poor season, I think it's going to be a rough one for Tennessee. But defensively, I got James Pierce Jr.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had their eyes on him last year. Scouts like him. And I've seen a lot of Tennessee fans worried about depth. I don't really see that on the roster. They did lose a couple of key players that had some good production last year, but I the guys that are replacing him, I think they're solid.
Yeah.
Just think a lot is hinged on how good is the quarterback play going to be. They got to have a decent ground game, but the Dylan Sampson seems like he's a solid running back. He had a decent year last year as the number 2 guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to have the reins. Not really too much to say about him. It's very dependent on quarterback play. If he plays well, I think they'll have a good season.
Yeah. It's about quarterback play. It always has been. It probably always will be. But that being said, the quarterback is only good as the surrounding pieces. And this year, I think that even though they did have the transfer class of 32, they did have a recruiting class of 13. And topping off the list at the top 4 recruits that they did have that are enrolled in school as of right now is 5-star edge rusher Jordan Ross out of Birmingham, Alabama, 6'4.5", 233 pounds, 9th best player in the country. Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, both wide receivers, both top 80 players in the country. Mike Matthews is a top 10 at the wide receiver position at this point. And that's really good considering the wide receiver class coming out this season is phenomenal. Like there's a lot of really good wide receivers that were recruits this season that are coming in as freshmen. Another one I wanted to make a mention of is that they do have a Peyton Lewis out of Salem, Virginia, running back, 6 foot 197. I think that's a really good get for them. And they do have a few others that I really do like that are going to be more depth pieces more likely. But Blake, to your point, is that they're worried about, like, fans or blogs are saying they're worried about depth. I'm not. Like, looking at the recruiting class, as long as they develop at a reasonable pace, I feel like they could step in by mid-season and start spelling some of the starters. Some of these guys, they're very talented, very big players, and I definitely see this happen. I mean, they have an offensive tackle coming in here from Texas that's 6'7", 324 pounds.
Yeah.
As a freshman. I mean, like, get the heck out of here. What is happening? When
There's
do we
also
start breeding giants?
Oh, there's another guy that we failed to mention too. And, there's an old saying that me and Brendan know well, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Well, I hope people got rabies shots because they've got a squirrel that's expected to run wild this season and squirrel wild. And, Brendan is always saying feeling squirrely. So is Tennessee going to have people feeling squirrely? Because I'm feeling squirrely.
Hey, look, are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see, right?
No.
Oh, good Lord, help me.
Oh, dad joke.
No.
If I had
Lord,
a
help me.
wah button or a I need one of those buttons like ASAP. That's all I got.
So
by the
if
way.
you can't hear me, I'm sorry.
I think he froze up a second.
It's because we were talking about squirrely shit and the damn internet went squirrely on me.
We're talking about squirrely. Internet goes squirrely. I like it.
Hey, look, all right, just double check. Everybody's in. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yep.
Everything's
All right,
solid. We can hear
let's
you.
roll on.
We
All
can
right.
hear you.
Well, hey, listen, this is what happens, boys. This shit happens. But yes, offensively, squirrel, old squirrel white, man. No, for real, that's his name. If you don't know, if you don't fucking know, that's his name. They're excited about him. Of course, Brew McCoy comes back from injury. They've got talent all over the offense and defense. Again, I mentioned Stays coming in from Notre Dame at tight end. Can he be a target for Nico? And I'll say in Nico's defense, because there's doubters, obviously he's a very highly rated guy. But when I look at Iowa, that defense is very strong. All right. And what he did in the bowl game, at first I was like, it's nothing crazy when it first happened. All this hype was going on. But looking back again, I was like, you know what? That's actually a really good performance from him. Being able to run for a few touchdowns. It wasn't a lot of yards necessarily, but it was still, a good game on the ground. Passing wise, You go 12 of 19 for a touchdown against one of the very strong defenses. And look, JJ McCarthy did similar stats. And I have a high respect for JJ. And I know others may not, but I do. So I think what he did against Iowa will set up just fine for what he's going to deal with in the SEC. But again, it depends on offensive line and wide receivers stepping up. I think running back's going to be just fine. But yeah, I don't know, guys. Defensively, I have concerns just because of how much they lost in the portal. And they really didn't plug much in coming back in. I mean, you got guys that are good. I'm not saying they didn't, but you lose a lot of depth there. And recruiting's great, all that, but it's hard to replace depth just off of freshmen. I mean, you're losing 1, 2 cornerbacks, 2 safeties, 3. I mean, a lot. 5 corners, 4 safeties, a couple of linemen. So that's one of those. I'm just a little bit concerned about that. But offensive line, bringing in Lance Hurd is huge. So I think they're going to be fine. I just want to see how that offense steps up and if they can get it running with Nico. You guys want to look at schedule and see what they're up against?
I do. Yeah.
All right. Because I mean, obviously you get an easy first week, but then it gets pretty tough pretty damn quick. What do you guys think about it?
I'm super stoked for the NC State game. I cannot wait. I am looking forward to watching that game week 2. One of my ones that I have where I'm going to be. I'm pretty stoked to watch it because while it is a test for Tennessee, it's just as much a barometer for what we expect or may not expect from the rest of the season from NC State as well. So it's I like the game because it's going to tell us a lot about both teams.
Yes.
Right out the gate.
I'm excited for the Kentucky game. Like I said, I think Kentucky's going to be better than a lot of people give them credit for. And they've beaten Tennessee, 1 or 2 times here lately. And I hate Tennessee. I hope they lose every game, just like, some of the other teams I hate with a passion. But it's required by law to be an Alabama fan to hate Tennessee. So I do faithfully. But in reality, they get a lot of their big games at home. The biggest one, obviously, on the road at Georgia is not at home. And then Arkansas. That something tells me Arkansas is going to ruin some seasons this year.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I feel it too, man.
But that being said, Blake, I feel like the same thing can be said for Oklahoma because I feel like Oklahoma is flying completely underneath everybody's radar. They think they're going to most like what we just said is like 6-6 maybe because of their schedule. But I feel like they're going to ruin somebody's season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to sound repetitive, but I mean, it's like we've been saying, it's dependent on the quarterback play. Like, what are you going to get out of him? So,
yeah, no, it's look, NC State early, Oklahoma, Bama, Georgia, Kentucky. It's a tough schedule, and this is a team that, I mean, like I said, the hype that is there that they're like, okay, Nico is it. He's going to lead us to the playoffs this year. There's Tennessee
$8 million man.
Oh, yeah. One more point. Don't sleep on the Miners, Vols fans. Don't sleep on them UTEP Miners. Texas El Paso coming for you.
Tennessee has a saying, we don't sleep on them, we sleep.
Oh,
I'm not going to finish it. That's a Tennessee thing. That's what they say. I don't say these things.
Hey, hold on now. Hey, we'll have to double check that one on the internet. Or maybe don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, don't start typing that stuff in. Get yourself in trouble. All right.
We're gonna go on. We're gonna go on and go talk about Texas. All right, Texas. We love Texas. Maybe not the team. People say they hate Texas, but I like the state. So let's go ahead and talk about them because 2023. We'll stop being silly, I guess. 2023. Really solid season. They did lose to rival Oklahoma, which hurt them to the core, and then losing in a tight game to Washington in the playoffs. But I mean, other than that, I mean, really great season. Getting to the playoffs. Is Texas back? They feel like it. This team is, I think, loaded going into 2024. Over under of 10.5. I did forget to mention. I think Tennessee is a 9.5 over under. So 10.5 over under. They bring back 67% production. Trevor, what are you seeing? Any changes on this team?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest major change with the Longhorns, while I think that Sark has done a wonderful job of keeping his staff together, because he has been quoted as saying that almost every person on his main staff has been offered jobs this particular offseason, and only one really took it, and that's Jeff Coat. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Longhorns co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach from 21 to 23. He left his 40 acres, as they say, and took the head coaching job at Nevada. And they bring in Johnny Nansen. He is I like him a lot. You know, he's a past year he was defensive coordinator. You guys might recognize him as the defensive coordinator for Arizona. And I thought, Arizona's defense was really well coached last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really great hire by Sark, and I think it kind of keeps the narrative that Texas is wanting to keep getting better and keep having elite coaches on their staff. And I think this kind of just fits into the mold of what Sark is trying to do at Texas and keep them as a power.
Yeah, they've done a really good job, and they've got the 6th ranked portal class. And you pair that with training production off the 9th offense, 34th defense last year, playoff team. And then we talk transfer portal again, the 6th class. You're bringing in guys that are going to be starters day one for what you lose, and we'll talk more about that on the when we talk about the team. But you're bringing in guys like Makuba, Isaiah Bond, Blackshire, Golden coming in from Houston, coming up the road, Trey Moore from UTSA. I think the biggest one, though, is Makuba at safety. That's huge for this defense. But then you did have losses too. Terrence Brooks was one that, late portal guy. Trill Carter moving on, Murphy, cornerback, and then Hall at wide receiver. Some pieces lost, but overall, this team is still going to be very loaded, very dangerous, immediate contenders, for one of the playoff spots in my mind. Gentlemen, what do you think about the offense, defense? What are you seeing on this team?
So, just getting right into the transfer portal offensively, I mean, getting Isaiah Bond was huge for them. I think he's going to be a great target. One name, though, that I think that's flying under the radar, that he's actually one of the key players that I have for Texas this year, and that's C.J. Baxter. Because all the eyes are on Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. That's all I've heard. That's all I'm going to hear all year, just because you have a Manning on the team.
Yeah.
And having a good running back to take some pressure off of the quarterback is going to be vital for Texas. Because after I went back and looked at some of their games last year, they had a lot of close calls with teams that they probably shouldn't have had close calls with. And I know they had some injury at quarterback for some of the games, but like the Wyoming game, was it Houston? There was games where they should have handily won them, and they didn't. And they're not recognized as a powerhouse team, so you just automatically associate that with them as just a dominant force. And the way it's going to fall for them this year, it could be worrisome. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they've got to protect the quarterback, which I don't think they'll have an issue doing. Their defensive line, I thought they were great last year. I think they're going to be great again this year. Just they got to have a good run defense. I think they've got all the pieces in place. It's just like we said about Ole Miss, Missouri. They just got to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly right. I can't applaud Sark enough for having the season he had last year with Texas, and then turning right back around, having the 6th ranked portal class, 5th ranked recruiting class, and absolutely destroying some of these recruits. I mean, they got a 5-star linebacker coming in, 5-star wide receiver, and Ryan Wingo coming in, who more than likely will be playing, maybe spelling Isaiah Bond even. He's 6'1.5", probably. I mean, With cleats on, he's probably 6'2". Uh, you never know.
Love it. I love it.
But
No,
anyway, they got Brandon Baker. Now I was gonna say Brandon Walker, but no, it's Brandon Baker out of Mater D.
Matter Day.
Yeah. Anyway, out of California, offensive tackle, 6'5", 285, third best at his position. I mean, you guys, they're getting the top 10 out of each position class. It's ridiculous. They have the third best safety in the country, in Xavier Filsam coming out of Texas. Jurek Gibson, running back, third best at his position at 5'10", 200 pounds. The 4 stars that are coming into this program right now. I mean, I know, Brendan, didn't you mention that they picked up a nice tight end in the transfer portal as well?
Yeah, and Niblack from Alabama.
That's right. That's right. And then they also picked up this 4-star Jordan Washington out of Texas, 24th best tight end, which doesn't sound like much, but he's 6'4", 225 pounds. So he's not. He's a big dude. These guys. I mean, Sark has done a phenomenal job this offseason, in my opinion, as far as filling needs and growing the Texas brand and making sure you have depth at all the positions. I think you couldn't have asked for a better job in the offseason from a head coach and a coaching staff in general, with a change at the co-defensive coordinator position.
Yeah, and I got to correct myself. I did say Blackshaw came in. I forgot he transferred late back to UTSA. So correction on that. But still, they still had a really good portal class. And then, you lost a good bit of players, 25 total. A lot to, power programs too. Auburn, Duke, Nebraska, local team, SMU, TCU. So that does hurt, but this team is very deep. Offensively, we mentioned, obviously you got Quinn Ewers coming back. It's massive for this season. 4 returning offensive linemen. Blake mentioned the running back play. Jaden Blue as well. He's another one that needs to step up. CJ Baxter, I think, is going to be just fine. Defensively, it's a D line where it's like, okay, you lost Sweat and Murphy, but you brought in some good dudes from Arizona that came over with the coordinator, and Save and Norton as well. So, I think that's going to help. Blake, you got something?
There's one more defensive guy that I don't know if you said him in the beginning or not, but Trey Moore out of UTSA.
Yeah.
He's an absolute monster, and I had him as one of my players to watch for Texas. So keep his name in your mind.
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of those big coups that you want from I hate to say, one of the smaller teams around you, and they're fighting like hell to keep. Hey man, we got something going. We want you to stay here. Well, Texas comes along and they, hey buddy, why don't you come up here, join us? And that's what happened. So no, they're loaded at talent. I mentioned Makuba's going to be a huge piece because really I think the cornerback is maybe where I'm a little bit concerned about. But they've got good safeties, strong and free safeties. So this team's going to be really good, and they're going to be.
Yeah, the cornerback position I think was I guess you could say a liability last year.
Yeah. And
it doesn't look like they really addressed it too much this offseason at all. Even in the recruits, there's not one cornerback. I think there's one or two safeties and one cornerback. But you're not going to expect a freshman to come in and make a difference at the corner and play cornerback 1 and take on the best receivers in the country. And most of the best receivers are in the SEC, whether I like to say that or not.
Yeah. And if you're going to have a freshman quarterback come in, it better be Will Johnson or something pretty damn close. Yeah. You did bring in Javion Cole from transfer portal from San Jose State. So, that's something. But, again, it's one that I'm a little concerned about that. But, outside of everything, it's a smallish concern, but it's still there in my mind.
Speaking of Will Johnson, Texas is going to get to see him in week 2.
Yeah, let's talk schedule, guys, because look, it's pretty tough. There's there's moments I think they're going to have just fine stretches, but it's not easy as well. What do you guys think?
I think, me personally, I don't know, Blake. You can kind of contradict me if you want, but I actually think Texas's schedule kind of mirrors the same difficulty, if you will, Tennessee's. There's a couple hard ones, don't get me wrong, but other than that, everything else I feel like they would be favored. Even a 60-40 split, they would be favored.
Yeah,
I think the flow of it works to their benefit. Most of their big games are isolated. So, it's like you got Colorado State, then Michigan, then you get a couple of easy games, then it's Oklahoma. The only tough one would be that Oklahoma, Georgia, but you do catch Georgia at home. The only place I could really see them tripping up would be when you get on into November, Florida, and then going on the road to Arkansas at an 11 a.m. game. It's hard to get up for those sometimes. And then Kentucky, and then you're at A&M.
That's a sneaky stretch.
It's
a
sneaky
little stretch.
But with the talent Texas has, in reality, I mean, I'll really only see two games that could give them like an actual fit, and that would be on the road at Michigan and then Georgia. But, the sneakiness of it, that November area there, I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah, I see that this team could go 12-0. It could go 11-1. I mean, it could go 10-2 if Michigan's quarterback play is better than what I anticipate it to be.
Yeah.
Because look, Michigan's going to have one of the strongest defenses in the country again. I don't know if listeners know that or not, but they're still loaded, even though they lost people. This is a loaded team. So Texas cannot go in there and think, oh, I'm just going to, we're going to go, stomp them. They might. I mean, they very well could. But it all depends on quarterback play at Michigan. But defense is going to be a very strong test in week 2. But after that, I mean, they have the talent to win every single game. Oklahoma, you can't let Oklahoma get you again this year, guys. Can't let it happen. And then Georgia, of course. So I'm curious to see how this one plays out for Texas. They should be right in the thick of things for.
I fully anticipate Texas to be in the championship, but like you said, if Michigan's quarterback play is better than advertised or better than expected, then if they drop that game, then they are really behind the 8 ball, dropping a game early like that.
I definitely agree there. Any last thoughts on Texas before we move on to Texas A&M? All right, let's hit it. Texas A&M, again, all the talent in the world, disappointing, finish, ended in a fired coach. They had strong moments too. Like they had some tough games that were really close. They didn't lose them all by much. It's not like they're getting, just blown out. Tennessee was close, Bama was close, Ole Miss was close. Even the bowl game they lost was close. So it's just, I want to see them, make that next step. And I feel like we say this, every year. But they got a new coaching staff, and there's hope going into 2024. And what Mike Elko brings, and they're loaded at talent, like we mentioned. They have 67% returning production. They had the 19th ranked defense last year. Now I know a lot of portal changes, all this stuff. So let's talk about 2024. Trevor, what are you seeing on the coaching changes from this new staff and all that?
Everybody changed, just everybody.
They all go home.
Texas A&M really is really trying to make me hate them just a little bit more by the fact that I have to just look at everybody, figure everybody out on who and what and who stayed. But I'm just going to kind of condense this. So Texas A&M people, I know you guys, most of you know that, but here's for the rest of the country. It's Mike Elko, obviously head coach. Trooper Taylor is the associate head coach for offense, in quotations, and the running back coach. Whatever quotations mean for offense, I'm guessing that just means he's over the offense along with the offense. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Texas A&M, you weird. Jay Bateman at defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. Colin Klein as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Jordan Peterson as the co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach, and Holman Wiggins as co-defensive coordinator and wide receivers. And now I do want to bring Blake in on the last coach and get his thoughts on this hire, because personally, I think this is probably the best hire out of the group, in my opinion, because of the pedigree in which Wiggins has been able to over the past 5 years, since he was the wide receiver and co-offensive or associate head coach of the offense for Alabama for the last 5 seasons. The last 3 seasons he was the assistant head coach, but he comes by way of nurturing Heisman Trophy winner and Biletnikoff winner in Devontae Smith in 2020. And then you're talking about Jalen Waddle, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, criminal, Jameson Williams, and Jerry Jeudy. But Blake, I wanted to get your opinion. Get your opinion on that particular hire in particular, and kind of say what you think about that hire and how it affects their wide receiver core going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the resume speaks for itself. I mean, he's dealt with some big names, some of the biggest in college football. I mean, the man knows what he's doing on the outside there. I mean, I think it's a home run hire too. All right, were you finished with your points?
Yeah, that's finished. We can just roll.
Yeah.
We can roll on it. We can roll on it. That was the last one. All in all, I think Texas A&M, after what you guys just went through, just be very happy that this is the head coach. This is the coaching staff that you now have. It all from top to bottom, from what I've researched, it looks like it's a very solid staff. It's just a matter of seeing how well, just in one off season, how well coached can this team be and how mentally strong they can be, because we all know Texas A&M has lacked mental toughness in the past.
And look, it starts up front with Texas A&M. The yell leaders have got to get this team amped up. They've got to do some better cheers, because like Brendan, you said, you feel like you say it every year. They should be good. They should be good. It's because we've been saying it since like 2007. I mean, they should be good. Going back to what's his name that was there, Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah,
he had talent. King of 8 wins. He had Johnny Football.
Yeah, right.
9 wins, 10 wins. I mean, they got a Heisman winner. It just seems like they are the team that year in and year out, they get taught the best of the best, and then they just do nothing with it. So like Trevor said it last year about a lot of different teams. Like he's not sold on them until they do something. And Texas A&M is just one of those teams for me. I mean, getting over to their team though, you got your quarterback, or we think they've got their quarterback if he can stay healthy. The line has got to protect him. That's how he got hurt. He goes down on a missed block assignment. And, I feel like they didn't really have a solid offensive line last year. They've lost a little bit of talent at receiver, but they do have some solid receivers coming in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the key to Texas A&M is they've got to have protection up front. I mean, and they need a running game. They've got to have a solid running game. Defensively, they've always got a good pass rush. I feel like, even going back 10 years ago, I've always heard of that relentless pass rush. I've experienced it as an Alabama fan.
Mm-hmm.
But in crucial moments during the season, they break down. The Miami game is a good example of that last year. They just got to put the pieces together. And I feel like I've said that a lot tonight, but all these teams we're talking about tonight are teams like that. They've got the pieces there. It's just, will they do something with it? And I really believe they have the staff now to do that. I really like what they've done offensively with Colin Klein coming in. I liked him at Kansas State. I think he knows his way around the offense. And I like Elkos personally myself. I liked him at Duke. I mean, what he did at Duke with minimal, he's got a chance here to show what he can do with some pieces finally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a high ceiling. I mean, they could have a really successful season. I just don't have faith in it happening until it happens.
Yeah, and so for me, it's transfer portal is obviously a huge part of the game now, and
Yep.
you can't really judge year to year, but sometimes teams just follow trends, and obviously new coaching staff. So I'm gonna give them their time and let them build. And really the portal, uh, they killed it in the transfer portal for the
They
fourth
did.
overall class. They lost 31. They brought in 28. So I mean that's a solid amount of overturn. But you're getting guys from talented locations like Utah, like Iowa, like Alabama, so Washington. So when I look at this, like Kean, Radcliffe at safety, Sanders cornerback, Allen at wide receiver, Will Lee at cornerback, offensive linemen, you got a couple of them because you lost a bunch. Um, Scooby Williams coming in at linebacker. What a name. Des Ricks, scoring from Purdue, I think is huge for this defense. A couple guys that left, obviously all the O line that left, just losing depth, even if they weren't great, it's still depth that sucks. Rakes on the D line, Evan Stewart's, that one hurts. Overton, Walter Nolan, and Cottrell. Those all obviously are big losses. But when I look at this team, I think Wingman can be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He had a really good season going for him last year before he got hurt. So how is he when he gets, coming back from it? Can they keep him upright, like you mentioned? Um, Wide receiver, I think is going to be fine. Tight end, I think is going to be solid. Offensive line, I mentioned you lost a lot, but you brought some pieces in that I like. Guys from Washington and then also from Utah. So I think the offense is going to be fine. I want to see the running game step up, like you mentioned, Reuben Owens. Let's see what he can do this year. Defense, I mentioned guy coming in from Purdue. Um, Scorton, I believe is
Yeah.
that dude. He's dangerous, and that's going to just lay right into this good defense that they always have. Defensive back at times last year collapsed. They get torched by like one wide receiver would put up like 200 on them. Maybe the stats a little off, but it's pretty damn close. There was like 3 games that happened, so I want to see them step up too. But I think this is a good team.
Right.
They've got plenty of talent to do it. Trevor, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. And the honestly, guys, I know I've been talking about the recruiting classes, but what's been the common theme almost on every recruiting class that we've done is that the top players in the recruiting class are all on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
Whether it's an edge rusher or a D lineman, or in Texas A&M's case, they have the number 1 cornerback in the country in Terry Busey, 16th best player in the country coming out of Timpson, Texas, at 5'10 and a half, 5'11 if he wears cleats. Oh, and but it's not just him. It's like the next top player that they got was a 6'4", 260 D lineman, and he's the 15th best. But I mean that's still a very good get. Then they got a couple 4-star defensive players, 5 4-star defensive players following that. So it's the defensive side of the ball has been focused on just about every SEC team that we have covered this offseason up to this point. And it doesn't just stick with the SEC. It goes to the other conferences as well. You can just see the trend of trying to shore up the defensive line. I feel like everybody watching what Michigan did last year and just dominating the offensive and defensive lines, and woke them up to the fact that old school football is starting to come back, where if you cannot control the line of scrimmage, you will lose.
Yeah. You have to have that. And again, they attack that in the portal. You've got to be strong up front, and they really went after it. And I give Mike Elko a lot of credit for what he did in the portal this year and his recruiting.
100%.
But I mean,
It is
just
not
being
easy.
able-
It is not easy changing jobs and still having
yeah,
that kind of a impact on the recruiting class and hanging on to 5 stars and top 4 stars, but also having the transfer portal class that they have. It's not easy to do that, and it speaks volumes for what Elko is trying to do there at A&M.
yeah. So again, I think they're going to be solid linebacker, defensive line, cornerbacks. They brought in a ton. So it's a whole new team, and so I'll judge them as such. We'll see what happens. Let's look at the 2024 season for them, because week one, it's game on, and they don't get a break. Guys, what do you think about it?
Well, for week one, for one of our friends, that we would refer to that as a quote split decision, and he will know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to elaborate on that. But if you dig on any further into the schedule, I mean, there's a couple of areas that could be a cause for concern, but overall, I think it lays out fairly well for them, especially if they can get past week one and we really get a good feel for what kind of team they've got there.
Yeah.
And if it's the team that I honestly think they have, I think they're going to have a solid season up until they get to Missouri. That's going to be a tough game. They do get them at home. All their big games, really, they get at home, except for possibly the biggest game of the season. You're going to travel out to Columbia, South Carolina for the historic, nationally recognized, one of the greatest teams in college football history, according to some comments. That could be a tough one. But no, in
Those
reality,
comments really got you going tonight.
I'm just defending
the
a friend.
A&M national championship right there, the South Carolina game. The people are talking.
Most likely, yes. This could be the biggest game in college football this season. Perhaps.
We're joking. If you people don't understand it, we're joking.
Yeah.
Some of you may not. I don't know.
I love the
reality,
schedule that I'm listing. I'm looking at the South Carolina game. I'm like, well, where's the time? And I'm like, nope, it just says night. That's all it says. No time, just night.
It tells me the tickets are as low as $22.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, but now in reality, I think the schedule, it kind of plays out good for them because, again, a lot of their big games are isolated. But then that also lays it for the trap game, especially, I've said them a lot tonight, Arkansas.
Yeah.
You've got them right before the Missouri game. You do have them, no, they play at a,
that's that mid, the neutral site up in Arlington.
But still, that's a trap game. And then even coming out of Missouri at Mississippi State, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just that's where teams tend to trip up, or those overlooking games when you're coming off of a big emotional game or going into a big emotional game. So, but I like this team, and I think they'll fare well this year. Finally,
Trev, what do you think? What are you seeing?
Well, for the first time since we've been doing this, I might actually be rooting for Texas A&M week one. So there's that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. But yeah, like Blake said, like the schedule is spaced out enough where it's not so, I don't know how else to put it, but not Florida.
Yeah.
Not where it's back to back to back, like
Yeah.
insane weeks. Don't get me wrong. Playing an SEC opponent, it's not going to be easy. I mean, no matter which way you slice it, Arkansas to Missouri to Mississippi State, and then you roll the Mississippi State game at Starkville, then you get to come home to Kyle Field and play LSU. And then, there is a little bit of rhythm, I feel like, in this middle part of the schedule where could be a little bit of trouble with Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, and LSU. Maybe South Carolina, but I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But ending your season with Texas is going to be tough. A rivalry game. And if you're in the hunt, I don't know. God, I'm trying to think.
Look, they have an over-under of 8.5.
I just don't see them getting 8, man. I don't know. They might get 8. I take that back. They might get 8.
So
they have to win week one now.
Yeah. For me, week one is a massive game, and that's why I had it on the list of like top games of the season, right at the top right in there is because this is huge for both teams.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a massive game for both teams because they both want so much more than what's been happening.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see how that first one goes. Sneaky game, Auburn before Texas, at Jordan Hare, however you want to say it. I know I can't. I can't. It's Jordan Hare.
It's like you're puking out of your mouth.
Tell me
They
I'm
do
a piece
that
of
too.
shit, whatever. I don't care. We are the Gridiron Uncensored. But either way, that game, that's a massive trap, in my opinion. You got to watch out for that Auburn team before a massive battle against Texas, and they hate each other. So that's going to be a fun ass game down the line, right there.
It's back. It's back, baby.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. But yeah, 8.5 is the over under. Again, we'll do projections later. We're gonna finish up. We've got one more set after one more group after this episode ends, and we're done with season previews, and then we get right into projections and playoff projections, all that type of stuff. Gentlemen,
Contenders, pretenders, all that stuff.
yeah. Anything else tonight before we close out?
Nah, we're good to go, man.
I'm
All
good.
right. Again, subscribe down below, and obviously like, comment, share. Commenting on the YouTube helps us tremendously. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We do gaming and all that good stuff too, and that's all going to really start pouring out because we got the College Football 25 coming out. I know we're all seeing the videos. I'm stoked and get us a little taste of this season before it actually kicks off. So we appreciate you guys. We hope you have a great night. We'll catch you around.